I'm going to call this meeting of the Belton Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Quorum of board members is present. This meeting has been duly called and posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. If you'll join me in the pledge to the American flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. Well, we are going to, I'm looking. Oh, why don't we, I'll tell you what, Bob, if you're okay, we're going to let Jennifer go first because she's going to be really quick, I think. And she brings the best news of the day, right?
Started off right.
All right, Jennifer, get us started with an update on our bond refunding, which was really
Great.
a remarkable experience, huh?
I believe Jennifer Bland emailed around a summary page. Do y'all have that, or have you seen it? If not, I have.
No, we don't have it.
No.
Okay, so we were here just a few days ago.
A few days. We had
A week
special meeting
ago.
a week ago.
So thank you for the special meeting. We'll talk about what that got for you, the ability to hold that special meeting here in just a minute. So as a reminder for those who were unable to be here last Monday, what we were looking at doing is refinancing some of the district's outstanding bonds for savings, similar to refinancing a mortgage, taking a higher interest bond and replacing it in today's market with a current lower interest bond. The impetus for doing this is that the federal tax law, which has been passed by both the U.S. House and the Senate, not yet completely passed into law, but probably headed that direction, would eliminate the district's ability to do what we call advance refundings, where you go in and you refinance debt ahead of its call date, which is typically what we do for you guys because we exercise the option at the best time in the market, as opposed to when the call date may come up. So what we were looking at refinancing to go ahead and get ahead of that December 31 deadline for doing so under the tax bill was refinancing portions of your Series 2010 and your Series 2012 bonds. Those carry interest rates between 4 and 5%. So we're looking at taking 4 and 5% interest rates and replacing them with today's true interest cost, which is the average interest rate on a new bond issue. In the summary of results here, I know it's hard for people in the audience to see, but we sold bonds with a 3.183%. So again, taking 4 to 5% debt, replacing it with a 3.183%.
Majority of that was 5% too.
That's right. Yeah.
All the 2012.
So what that does here on the far right-hand side is it equates to a savings of, I feel like we need a drum roll, $6,832,060. So I know last week we talked about $4.2 million. We weren't trying to make us look good and make it look like we're doing better. The market has been bouncing around so much because this tax bill is assumed to become law as of December 31. At least on this advanced refunding portion. We're not sure when they'll sign it. There's tons of people coming to market doing exactly what you're looking at doing. As a result, the investors at one point got a little tired and were being very picky. And then last week when we came to you, they were starting to panic and say, well, if this does pass, we may not have bonds to invest in next year, so let's go ahead and put our money out there. So we were in a good position. That started to turn again last week. So we were actually scheduled to price today. And we actually moved it up to Thursday. So because you took action on Monday, gave us the ability to move forward with the superintendent's signature, we had the ability to go when the market was best. So on Wednesday, we saw things were looking really good. I asked our underwriting team if we could go ahead and go, and they said, we'll go first thing in the morning, which was perfect. It started to turn on Thursday, but you got out ahead of it. So, that's why it's at 6.8. For example, if you were to price today, when we originally intended to price, savings would have been about $5.6 million. So a big swing. These were just really volatile. So that would have been about $1.2 million less than what you actually saved. So the flexibility, your ability to have that special meeting saved the district quite a bit of money. So we certainly appreciate you always being willing to work with us to do that.
Oh.
So we certainly are very excited with the results. You had a new a finance team as well that was very helpful throughout the process, as well as the superintendent as always. And we're happy to bring you guys these results.
This is really good news, obviously. We were looking at $4 to $4.5 million would be really good news. $6.8 million savings without extending the life of the loans.
Correct.
And the repayment schedule is a tremendous benefit to our taxpayers. And that's obviously the great news. The bad news is this may be the last time we get to do this.
That's right, for quite some time.
And Congress is going to take away this opportunity for us to save our taxpayers' money. Thank you again for bringing this opportunity to us, though. This turned out to be really important to us, and especially as it may be our last time to be able to do it. It's really extra bonus that it's so good. So thank you. Wow,
We're
exciting.
happy to help, and you guys,
Well done.
with your bond rating and staff being ready, put yourselves in a position to take advantage for the taxpayers, so we always appreciate it.
So this will put since 2010, this is our 8th refunding, and we're somewhere north of 15 million.
We were 13.2 before your additional on this
Another
one.
2.5, so we're
So about 2.5, yeah, so almost 16,
almost
close to
16 million,
16.
close to, I don't know what to do the math on that, but over the last
Over 15.
7 years, we've been able to save
A
a
whole,
lot of money.
like
for
an
our
elementary
taxpayers.
school, essentially, if you look at it that way. So thank you.
Wow. That's a great way to look at it. Thank you. Thank you
guys.
for your
Thank you,
work. We
Jennifer.
appreciate you. Okay, Bob Templeton, can you beat that? I know, tough act to follow, but Bob, for those of you that don't know, Bob Templeton's with Templeton Demographics. We sure appreciate you being here. You've helped guide us through our growth process for several years and anticipating and planning, and boy, your projections have been right on and helped us, and so give us today.
All right. Thank you, Board President, Board members, Dr. Kincannon. It is my pleasure to be here with you tonight. I will briefly touch on the economic conditions that we see across the Belton, Temple, Killeen area. I'll spend a good bit of my time talking about the housing market. The housing market is the driver for population growth in the Belton School District, and then we'll talk about the enrollment projections. Well, overall, the Killeen, Temple, Belton MSA is doing quite well related to job growth. The job growth in this area is about 2.3%, which you can see the national job growth rate is right at 1.2%. That's the equivalent of about 3,800 jobs that are being added to the local economy. When I say local economy, the greater Killeen, Temple, Belton area. Unemployment rates are very low. You can see that the U.S. unemployment rate's at 3.9. Texas is at 3.5. The Killeen, Temple MSA is at 3.4. Temple's at 2.9. So overall, we've got full employment. These are very low unemployment numbers. The housing market, this time of year, we do see a little bit of a slowdown. So when you see that there's been 161 fewer sales for this time of year compared to a year ago, that's really a very minimal change. So I'm not seeing a slowdown in the housing market. When we look at the permits and we look at the new housing information, in fact, what we're seeing is the housing market is continuing to expand. So from January 2017 through November of 2017, within Belton ISD, we've had 1,650 home sales. That's existing home sales and new home sales. About 30% of that 1,650 was for new homes. So you can see we've got very strong growth in the new housing market. The average new home sales price within Belton ISD is $226,000. The average existing home sale price in Belton is $200,000. So we're seeing steady growth in the values of new and existing homes. Just another look at the data. This is the multiple listing service data out of Texas A&M University. What I'll point out from this graph is that the average price is $234,000. This is for Belton portion of the school district. The median price is $219,000. Average price is up 25%. Median price is up 30%. Number of listings in the inventory also normally slow down this time of year. As we get towards those winter months, we don't have as many people put their houses on the market to sell. So that change in listings is not problematic. When we look at the Temple portion of the Belton School District's numbers, average price $170,000, and that's up about 20%. The median price is $156,000, and this is existing home sales. Now, this is looking at the new home construction permit data going all the way back to 2008. This is specific to Belton ISD. You can kind of see the pattern. We had 409 permits issued in 2008, and then it kind of dropped down to about a 300 annual level. It stayed around that 300 mark through 2014, and then in 2015 is when we started to see a change. It jumped up to 376. In 2016, we did 514. And that's year-to-date, January through October, we had 498. So we are likely going to be exceeding the number in 2016. So we're going to have I'm going to call it a record-breaking year in 2017.
Wow.
This is breaking it down between the City of Belton portion of Belton ISD, and you can see those permits. Within the City of Belton, we'd been about 65 in 2011, stayed, just around 100 through 12, 13, and then in 14, 15, it dropped below 100. And then you'll notice the addition of Three Creeks. So Three Creeks came online last year. That's what caused the City of Belton's numbers to really shoot up. So the addition of Three Creeks in 2016 pushed the City of Belton's total permits up to that, 190 range. And in 2017, through December, we're already over 220 issued in the City of Belton. The City of Temple, you can see the pattern there, consistent growth. In 2013, we had 176. In 2016, we had 395. And January through December 2017, 393. So you can see we're going to be doing close to 400 homes again in the City of Temple's portion of Belton ISD. Here's a map of the district. Those green outlines are active neighborhoods that are building houses. We've got about 1,400 lots available for builders to build on. So you can see the pattern. You're growing all throughout the district. It's not concentrated in one area of the district. It's spread in many elementary attendance zones. Those yellow outlines are future developments. They have been either preliminary platted or there's some concept plans, so it's developers' intentions. So it's more than just looking at raw land. There is some planning that's gone on to produce these roughly 6,000 lots that are in the development process to come to the school district. Now, it can take anywhere from a year to 3 years to see those lots come to fruition, but we try to get it on the map and on the radar as soon as we get a preliminary plat or a concept plan, so we can get it in front of you. So you can see the pattern. You've definitely got the building in place. The lots are in place to keep doing that 500 to 600 homes a year. We've got future lots that are coming. The only thing that would really derail this would be a significant change in the economy. I don't see that happening in the next couple of years. But we've been in a pretty strong economy for the last 5 years. So I would say we've got 2 years of dependable growth. And then when we get beyond 2 years, it's a little more cloudy. And I always caution our clients to really focus on the next 5 years of the forecast. Don't get concerned with the back end of a 10-year forecast because so much can change. One of the concerns I have, your housing is still in pretty good shape as far as the price, but in Austin, the average price for a new home has shot up well over $300,000. And so that's pricing out a lot of young families from being able to buy new homes. Well, that trend could make its way into the Belton housing market. And it's dependent upon the cost of materials, it's dependent upon labor, and it's just going to be the close thing to watch. When your average price for a new home is less than $300,000, you're still in the reach for young families to get to those housing. If you go to your neighbors to the south, their housing is so much more expensive that it's problematic for those younger buyers.
Why many of them are moving this way too.
Yes, you've got good houses, a great school district, and the housing is still in reach. And in Salado, the housing market is a little more custom builders, but those houses are much, much more expensive. Part of it's the proximity to Austin. So it's generating Austin traffic into Salado. Georgetown's very expensive. But the Georgetown-Salado area is also a retirement attraction because of Sun City and the developments that are in that area, it's generating a lot of buyers that are over 50, 55. And so Salado has a lot of that as well. They're moving there out of a lifestyle choice. And so I see your housing market continuing to be a housing market that does attract families because you've got an outstanding school district and your housing is still within reach. It's hard for me to believe that even 250 is still, that's that's on the lower end of new housing in the state of Texas. If you go to Houston, over 300,000. You go to Frisco and the fast growth areas of DFW, it's 350 to 400,000. So a 250 price point is actually a pretty good price point. Here's some of the details on some of the most active neighborhoods. Of course, Three Creeks, it's your largest that's going on right now. It's 1,500 total homes. There's about 105 homes occupied. Phase 3 with 89 lots was recently delivered. There's home building going on. The final plats were approved for phases 4 through 7, which contains about 459 future lots. That price range is $150 on the low end, all the way up to $1 million. They're hoping to build about 125 homes a year. So I'd say around 100 is probably a realistic number, but definitely going to be very strong growth in Three Creeks. The yield right now is 0.56. But I think that yield is a little low, primarily because the subdivision is so new. You know, once we get about 2 to 3 years in there, we're going to see yields that will probably be 0.7, 0.8. It could get in that 0.7 range.
Are those, is that yield specific to age, like elementary versus secondary?
What I was quoting was the total yield.
Right, so.
But we do.
Younger families out there?
It would be younger families. But we do have the breakdown on the yields. Mm-hmm. Here is Northgate. It's 647 total lots. They've recently delivered 133 lots, and home building is taking place. They're building about 30 to 40 homes per year. That price range, 150 to 250. The current yield there is 0.85 students per house, a little bit higher yield. You can see the proximity to the middle school. It's also fairly close to the elementary school. So being so close to those schools definitely helps the yield as well. Lake Point, it's 710 total lots. Almost 300 homes are occupied. Phase 3 with 317 lots was delivered this past summer. They're hoping to build about 75 to 100 homes per year. That price range, 145 to 220. Its current yield is 0.83 students per house. Westfield, 1,096 total lots. There's about 355 that are occupied. There's a few lots, you'll notice them, about 50 lots that do fall within Temple ISD. It's kind of on the, you can see where the black line, that black line is illustrating the district's boundary line between Temple and Belton. So there's a few lots that could be in the Temple School District. They're building about 75 homes per year. That price range is 130 to 185. Presently, the yield is 0.59 students per house in Westfield. Hills of Westwood, 913 total lots, about 350 occupied, building about 50 homes per year. That price range, 180 to 240. The current yield there is 0.61 students per house. Carriage House Trails, 195 total lots. There's about 73 future lots in Phase 2, building about 30 homes per year. Price range 180 to 255. The yield there is 0.42 students per house. And then just down the road there and a little bit southeast is the Plains at Riverside, 159 total lots, 63 futures, building about 25 homes per year, 215 to 275. And that yield is 0.53 students per house. Hubbard Branch, it's 500 future lots. A final plat was approved for Phase 1 with 177 lots. The initial ground clearing is underway. It could be starting in early 2018. First homes by late summer 2018. That's in the Miller Heights Elementary Zone. Sendero Estates, it was formerly Chisholm Trail West, 177 future lots. The groundwork is underway. The final plat has been approved. Homes could be starting in early 2018, and it's just right next door to Chisholm Trail Elementary School. Circle C Ranch Estates, 80 lots. The preliminary plat approved by the City of Temple in June. It's the Carruthers homes. It's in the Sparta Elementary Zone. So could be 2018, late 2018, early 2019 when we start to see an impact, but it's a smaller development. Likely will have just a small yield related to Sparta. Valley Ranch is 144 total lots. 71 are occupied. 230 to 350 is the price range, building about 10 homes a year. The current yield there is 0.34. Just next door, there was a rezoning application that was denied.
Can you back up a slide?
Sure.
There you go. In that one?
Oh, yes. I was talking from this and wasn't looking at the right one, but this is next door to Valley Ranch. You can see that yellow outline right here. This had a zoning request change, and it was denied for 280 future lots. So there's the chance this could come back with a different zoning request or different density, and we'll just have to watch that one. Now, the one to the north is a little trickier. That zoning request was also denied for 250 lots, but they've got a problem with access. So I think this one could be a long ways before it has any likelihood of happening, because you've got a railroad track here, so then they really can't get access to this major road here. The only way for them to get access is to come through this neighborhood. Well, the neighborhood is fighting it. And so they really do have an access problem. You've got a creek back in here, and so I think this development has a lot of hurdles to get over before it could see approval, whereas the one to the south here, it could happen a little sooner. You've got Legacy Ranch. It's 140 future lots. The groundwork is underway, so home building will be starting in early 2018. It does have a little piece of some multifamily, and we could see construction starting on this development in 2018. Here's a look at your multifamily analysis. These are your multifamily apartments or your complexes. You currently have about 770 students residing in about 2,280 multifamily units. So our average across the district is 0.29 students per apartment unit. Now, just to give you a comparison, for manufactured housing communities, mobile home communities, the average for a manufactured housing community is 0.59. So a little bit higher versus the multifamily. The red complexes or neighborhoods are yielding greater than 0.75. The yellow, the orange are yielding between 0.5 and 0.75. And then the yellow are yielding between 0.25 and 0.5. So you can see, I would classify all of these as having a pretty high yield. Anything above 0.5 would be a pretty strong yield.
That's unusual for us. You seem like when we've talked about that before, the apartment complexes have not had many kids in them. That's a change.
A little bit of a change, and it could be related to the price points of homes.
That makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for a lot of our clients, the yield for a multifamily is in that 0.4 to 0.5. And so you're still a little bit less than, now, also, you don't have a lot of tax credited subsidized apartment complexes.
Right, it's not those kind, right?
Yes. Now, we are using birth rate data to help us with the kindergarten enrollments, and this is, I think, a new slide that we haven't showed you in the past. So we have the ability to look at the birth rate data for the school district, and what we do is we looked at the data for births back in 2011. So in 2011, we had 907 births within the district, and then the corresponding kindergarten enrollment in 2006. So 5 years after the birth.
Other way around.
So the births happened in 2006, correct? No. Yes.
Births in 2006.
Births in 2006, kindergarten enrollment in 2011. So then we do a comparison to check the ratio from the births to the actual kindergarten enrollment 5 years later. And you can see that ratio actually tracks very
Yeah,
closely.
that's interesting.
I mean, it's literally 0.8,
80%.
80%, which is very high. It's good. And so then we have 3 years of data to use to help us with kindergarten. So then what we do is we look at the birth data for the last, or 3 years ago. That helps us with forecasting 18, 19, and 20.
Yeah, is that unusual, or is that, I mean, what do you usually see?
0.6 to,
Really?
yes.
So that's unusual.
It's a little bit unusual.
But it's consistent.
It's very consistent.
Trend.
So that makes it a little easier for us. So now I've got a target. So now I know that I need to build my campus projections at the kindergarten level to hit.
Based on birth rates.
Yes. I know that my kindergarten class next year needs to be 818, because that's 80% of the births 5 years ago. And then the same thing for 19. So 19 it's going up, and 20 it's going up. So you can see the birth data is pointing to this increase for 818 next year. That's really pretty flat. So we really didn't see much of a change. But then the next year it goes up 20 kids. The next year it goes up 30 kids. So now this number is becoming easier for me to forecast. What you'll notice is this year you grew about 411 students, which you actually exceeded our forecast. And you exceeded about, I want to say about 100 kids. So, the previous year you grew 250, and we knew you were going to increase. And so we bumped it up 100, and we grew you like a little over 300, and instead you grew 400. I kind of like it when you grow a little more. I'd like it to be a little closer than that.
You hit it exactly one time.
We did hit it really close a couple of years ago.
That's still legend,
But this is always a better problem. When you grow a little more than we forecast is a better problem than when you're less than we forecast. So we do believe that next year you could see about 433 students of growth for the next 2 years. So we're holding that number at 433 for the next 2 years. And then in 2020, you jump up over 500 kids. There again, Three Creeks is going full speed. You've got some other neighborhoods that are going full speed. And so in 2013, you're topping 500. That'll be your fastest growing year that you've probably seen within the last, 10 years. I don't know if you've had a 500 growth year.
No.
And so you're headed into kind of, with all of the housing that we pointed out that's coming on, you really are headed towards, continued very strong growth.
It's a good year to open a new.
In 5 years, this pattern would add over 2,257 students in the next 5 years. In 10 years, your growth could be 3,974 students, which would put you at 15,504 students in the 27-28 school year. Now, here's what it looks like at the campus level. Now, keep in mind, I know you're well aware, you're going to be opening an elementary school in 2019. So this forecast is based upon your current attendance zones. So we don't make any assumptions on what the boundaries are going to look like at this point. Now, I know you're going to start working on this process very soon. And so then as we get new ideas on the attendance zones, we can very quickly update the projections. But right now, what we're going to see is, Chisholm Trail is going to be over 800 students next year. Joe Pirtle Elementary, 782. And then Leon Heights, it's not growing much, so it's a smaller, older campus, but it's going to be at 284. And then you'll notice in 2020, we would have 4 campuses that are beyond the capacity. But there again, we will have had the opportunity with the opening of the next elementary school to help those campuses that are possibly over capacity. There again, when we look at the secondary campuses, keep in mind in 2020, that's the year that the new high school opens. That's also the year that the 9th grade center becomes the 4th middle school. So, you're going to have some yellow campuses for the next couple of years through 18 and through 19, but 2020, all of the yellow is going to go away. And so your successful bond program, when it's implemented in 2020, will take care of the middle school problems and will take care of the high school problems related to utilization. In summary, then we'll go back and answer questions. Of course, the Killeen, Temple, Belton MSA, the unemployment rate's very healthy. It's well below 3%. Belton ISD had roughly 1,650 home sales in 2017, and about 500 of that was new homes. Northgate had plans approved for an 514 additional lots. Hubbard Branch will have homes starting late next summer. So you can see we got some new developments coming online, lots of lots coming online. Belton ISD will have a new elementary school opening fall of 19, and the Belton Middle School and the new high school will open in 2020. So that will significantly help with your utilization opportunities. In the next 5 years, we could see 2,257 additional students coming to the school district. That'll put your enrollment in 2022 at 13,787. And by 2027, the district's enrollment could top 15,500. Be happy to answer any questions.
Well, obviously, this is even accelerated from last year's.
It's a little bit higher.
And you, other than we're just desirable, what's the acceleration?
Well, it's also when you pass a bond election and it's like Field of Dreams. You build it and they come. So now the builders are excited, and you've definitely got plans to address the growth. So then you have more capacity, and so then therefore this momentum gets created because of the passing of the bond election. New schools are coming, and it feeds on itself. That's one aspect. The second aspect is I think that the housing getting so expensive in some of the other areas around, like Austin, promotes your area. You're within reach of Austin. Also, the Waco market, you're really not in the Waco area, but Waco's not as desirable as here. So therefore, you're kind of fitting in that sweet spot related to Waco, Temple, Belton, Austin. You're right in that sweet spot. So I think it's a function of two things. It's the Field of Dreams, build it, they will come, and then your housing and the success of your school district. Your school district reputation is outstanding, and that feeds on itself as well. Now, what will be interesting to watch as you continue to get bigger, how you deal with the size. I think going to the second high school will actually be a plus in that you can create some of that smaller environments. When high schools get above 3,000, and that's where you are, you're at that 3,000 point, that's where it can become, the parents, some families will want to jump to other areas that have smaller high schools. So there's pros and cons to the high school size.
So, and I asked you this a little bit at the beginning or before we started. You're working with other areas, school districts that are also dealing with growth and all. Are they going to have any impact on us in slowing down our growth?
Well, it's very interesting. We worked with Academy ISD. Academy ISD, unfortunate for them, they do not have the Field of Dreams ability because of their debt capacities. They can't build any facilities anytime soon. So they have a real problem with handling growth. So therefore, it's not going to be to their advantage to take out of district transfer students because they have capacity issues and they have limitations on their ability to issue additional debt. So therefore, it's going to be a long time before they can build anything or create any more capacity at Academy. Now, I'm not as familiar with Salado. We did Salado, but I'm not familiar with their debt capacity, and I don't know if they have those limitations. No. But at Salado, it's a different housing product, and it's more expensive, and it's custom, and there's not as much, and so it's a little. I don't know that it's not as much of a competitor. They're going to be. Do they let out of district transfers come?
So they have a high percentage of district transfers.
But that can easily change. When they get to a certain point, they can say, "Okay, no more."
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any questions? This is obviously important information as have used this information to plan ahead, and it's a good thing we have elementary school opening in 2019 and high school and middle school opening in 2020.
Yes.
Clearly, students are coming.
We are a resource that's available at any time, so if anytime you think of something, don't hesitate to send it through the administration to Dr. Kincannon, and we'll respond. We do have a spring report as well that we do. So we're monitoring the housing market all throughout the year. So any changes in the environment related to the housing market or the economy, we can rapidly adjust our models.
Yeah, and I would mention that we'll be working with Bob and his team to prepare for our attendance boundaries drawing that's coming up this next year, and so we'll be working towards putting a committee together by summer and studying some planning areas in preparation for that.
Great. The only other thing I'd mention, Elizabeth, could you make sure this is on our website? We want to get this information to our community, and as we have done with your previous reports, this is really great information to help people understand what's happening. So thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, next item on our agenda is closed session to discuss personnel and real property. It is 5:36. Hopefully we'll be back shortly after 6 to get to our recognitions. Okay, we will reconvene in open session. Thank you for waiting for us. We're excited to be here at this point to recognize some of our awesome students and our staff. We're going to get started recognizing our sweet jazz alto saxophone superstar.
Yeah, we're in for quite a treat. We're in for quite a treat tonight. Cameron DeHart, a senior at Belton High School, placed 10th in the state of Texas on alto saxophone in the Texas Music Educators Association All-State Jazz Audition Process. For the second year in a row, Cameron placed first chair alto sax in the TMEA Region 8 Jazz Band, advancing him to the state level auditions. His area recorded audition was then adjudicated against 60 other top region alto saxophone players from across the state, and he ended up 10th. Cameron plans to attend Baylor or Tarleton State University next year and major in music education. Congratulations, Cameron. And let me take that.
Cameron, we are thrilled and that you got this honor and the recognition you got, and even more thrilled that you brought your instrument with you. So it's all yours, man.
The floor is yours.
There you go. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well done, Cameron. Proud of you. Great job. Thank you for that. What a treat for us. Get to hear you play. That was awesome.
Now he's headed off to the band concert, so you are
Now we got a
excused.
band concert. If we get done in time, we'll join you. Thank you. Wow, that's great. What a treat. Get to hear him play. Congratulations. Okay, well, let's recognize some special student athletes at several of our, I started to say at Belton High School, but at our middle schools also, with our Special Olympics participants. Tell us about that.
Okay, this year Belton ISD students and staff are participating as a team in official Special Olympics competitions for the first time in almost 20 years. In response to parent and student interest, staff members of the Special Education Department are facilitating this opportunity by organizing both a Young Athletes program and the traditional Special Olympics activities offered to middle school and high school athletes. In addition, staff has incorporated the district's Partners PE program that brings together general education students and special education students in an inclusive environment. The commitment of the staff and community volunteers speaks to the quality special education program the district offers for students with disabilities. Tonight, the board would like to recognize the athletes, as well as the student and staff volunteers who recently competed in the area Special Olympics bowling competition that featured teams from more than 15 schools from the region. And we're going to start by calling up the teacher volunteers and thanking them for their volunteer.
So hang on just a minute. I want to make sure everybody knows we like to take pictures here, so we're going to have you come up to the front and family. This is a family celebration night, so please come up and take pictures and join in that celebration, and we will have enough time to take all those pictures. We recognize that this is a family experience, and so we want to honor, I love this, we're going to honor all of our students and our staff and our families tonight. So
thank you. First, teacher volunteers, Lauren Marks. Angie Labai. Laura Miller. Haley Stepan. Jana Bright. Sabrina Falcon. And this is our group of staff.
great job, guys. We appreciate your work every day. And this is a wonderful opportunity for us to recognize you and thank you for your work with our students. Olympic coach. So we're going to, I like that. These are our Olympic coaches, is that right?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay. And they're going to stay up there while we call up, stay up there while we call up the student volunteers. Liam McCarthy, BHS. Kendall Olson, BHS. Emma Baker from New Tech.
Got to do them in a different order.
Abby Hazelwood from BHS. And Kaylee Thompson from BHS. Yep, you're going to take it.
Okay. There you go. You're all right. We're used to being hidden. We're the hidden background. That's okay. We are so proud of our Partners PE program and the work that these students do. What a great opportunity for you to learn and to give and to partner. We appreciate you. So let's recognize our student athletes.
That's what we're here for now. Now it's time for our student athletes. Candace Brashear, South Belton Middle School. Candace. Hey, Candace.
Okay, I'm going to have to move on.
Yes, sir. Then we have Dalton Guthrie from Belton High School. And Kelsey Olson, North Belton Middle School. And Mario Ortega, BHS. And then Matthew Ortega, BHS. And we're going to take one picture as a group, and then parents, if you'd like to come join, we'd love to have you join in the picture, please.
So parents, take all the pictures you want and then come be in a picture. And I was going to ask you to be sure and be recognized. We stand and take pictures. I'm going to squeeze into this picture. I want to be part of this obscure group. Awesome. Okay, parents.
Any parents?
right up here. And then we'll have to go get backwards. Great opportunity, family members. This is a family opportunity. All right. Congratulations. Okay. So, you don't have a...
We want your little one up here next time, too. We sure don't.
Little. You haven't seen Dylan in a while. You called him little. Great job, guys. What a special treat for us to have this group of student athletes with us. Thank you. We are so proud. Proud of all of our student athletes. Thank you all. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for being here.
Okay.
Next up.
And our next recognition will be our Big Red community partner.
Yes,
We
we're ready.
are very fortunate to have a number of members of our community and people who are making a difference, and organizations making a difference for our students.
That's right. Okay, the Big Red community partner for tonight is the Anti-Defamation League. Belton ISD is committed to creating inclusive learning environments for all students in which their unique differences are celebrated. A significant partner for us in putting into practice strategies and objectives related to inclusivity is the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. The district has collaborated with the ADL on specialized training and the No Place for Hate program. No Place for Hate is a school climate improvement framework that provides pre-K through 12 schools with guided plans for combating bias, bullying, and hatred. We are really proud to say that 7 campuses last year received that designation, and this year 13 campuses are moving forward with that important designation. Building inclusive and safe communities in which respect is the goal and all students can thrive is important for Belton ISD, and the ADL is a strong partner. And with us tonight is Education Director for North Texas and Oklahoma, Dr. Rochelle Warren, who will accept their award. Thank you for being here.
Lauren's on our agenda here in a little bit, so we'll give her an opportunity to speak and respond in a few minutes. We are so appreciative of the community partnerships we have. Also wanted to just mention a couple of things briefly. The parades, Christmas parades recently, special thanks to our transportation department. I hope you had a chance to see pictures. If you did not see Rudolph the Red-Nosed School Bus, our transportation department does a great job with that. And Robert Atmar, thank you for coordinating that and getting our entries in there. Also, we have later on our agenda to accept the Belton Education Enrichment Foundation donations to our teacher grants. They had their patrol where they went out and awarded those grants the other day. What a wonderful event. We're so fortunate to be in a community that provides extra opportunities for those teachers having innovative ideas for their classrooms, and also some paraprofessional grants. What a great day that was. And then I just wanted to mention, I hope you saw maybe on the news or in the newspaper or on social media about the BBVA Compass Bank Blue Elf program at Miller Heights Elementary. Friday? Is that Friday? Yes. Like Thursday. Days are running together. Last week. Wonderful event. We're so thankful for their willingness to make a very special day for a group of kindergarten and first grade students, and really invest in our students. So really a neat opportunity. Okay. That is, I believe, all of our recognitions, unless I missed anybody, and Elizabeth left, so I guess we're good. At this time, we will hear public comments. I've been given a few people have filled out forms, so we'll just kind of go in the order that I received those. Michelle, you want to come up first? Yes, there you go, and microphone, that way we'll be able to hear you.
Okay, hopefully I'm not too loud, am I?
You're
Kind
fine.
of have a loud voice.
Oh, let me, I'm sorry, I should have said this before public comments. I want to make sure, everybody who wants to speak, we do have a time limit of 5 minutes, and you need to understand that we're not able to respond
Right.
necessarily specifically to questions or any comments, but we want to hear what you want to say, and we're here to listen.
Okay. Well, I'd like to first start off with introducing myself and thanking you guys for the time to allow me to speak. My name is Michelle Quintanilla. I have 3 kids currently in the BISD school district. We moved from Colina ISD to make your population grow a little bit better for several reasons. One, the school district is a better school district versus Colina ISD, and I wanted my kids to have a great opportunity at school and learning and get the benefits that they don't have at Colleen. I have a 10th grader who plays football for the high school, has played freshman year and this year as well. And I'm here to speak upon Coach Maxwell, as I know that later on y'all are going to make a decision or discussion topics about the decision of whether or not to keep this coach or to let him go ahead and leave. Before you make that decision, I wanted to ask you to please think about not only his career, but his family, but also the most important thing, what Belton High School will lose. He is not only a coach, he is not only a teacher, he is not the kids' friends, but he looks after the kids as if he is a parent figure. And the children need more of that in their lives. There are plenty of parents out there these days that do not care about their kids. They come to school and they're looking for somebody that they can trust and install that trust with and have that confidence with that person. For 2 years now, I've gotten to know Maxwell through my son, and I've gotten to know the kind of man that he is and how he looks after his students as if they are his own and not just a student, not just a paycheck, not just another football player to get his stats up as coaching. He is indeed somebody that I think that you guys should seriously think hard about keeping on with the school district. He has done great things for my son, and I know that he's come to the school to do great things and to make a difference with these students. There should be more teachers like him out there and more coaches like that out there. And I can't just stress enough how wonderful he is and how great of a man he is indeed. And that if y'all let him go, you're not only doing it, you know, and him losing his career, but his family, but you're also going to be losing a wonderful man that's actually going to look after these kids on a day-to-day basis and care for them as if they were his. When I grew up, and I'm not that old, but when I grew up, it was a community, okay? So the community was, I messed up, my girlfriend's mama seen me mess up, she got onto me, handled it her way, and then, you know, my mama got onto me at home. Well, nowadays, everybody just turns their head, right? Turns their head. The quickest thing to do is, hey, let's let the police handle that, or let's let this person handle that, or let's do this and let's do that. There's not enough community raising these kids. And at the heart of the soul of it all, when they grow up, they're going to realize it just like I did. A flashing light bulb comes upon your head and says, oh my God, it does take a community to raise these children and to raise them the right way. We can't just turn our backs on our kids and say, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and you're just going to have to suffer and deal with the hard way. Sometimes it takes somebody speaking to them and standing up for them and saying, hey, this and this and this isn't right. You know, you need to stop right now, because if you continue to do this and this and this is where it's going to lead you at. And if we had more people that didn't turn their backs on their children and sat there and actually helped when the other parents couldn't and the other teachers couldn't, I'm sure we could definitely make a huge difference as far as that's concerned. So that's all I've got. So I hope you guys think about that long and hard and before you make any rash decisions on what's going to happen.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're very welcome. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for listening. Thank you, sir, for listening. Thank you, ma'am, for
Okay, Logan?
Hello, my name's Logan Turner. I'm Michelle's son. I do play football at Belton High School. I know Coach Maxwell for 2 years now. I really didn't know him that well 9th grade football season because I was playing a different position and I never got the time to hang out with him or anything. But after the year went on, track came, and that's when that's when me and him really connected, and he began he became a guy that I really looked up to, and he helped me through a lot of things and taught me what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do in life. He helped me with school and life choices. He is a man that everybody needs to look up to, and I know a lot of people do look up to him. And I just wish that things didn't happen how it happened, and I hope that everything could get fixed and he could come back and coach and be a teacher again. And that's really all I got to say.
Thank you, Logan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Logan. All right, Jeremy?
Thank you, board, for your time. Thank you, community. I like to speak on Coach Maxwell's behalf. You know, my family has gained a deep respect for this community, this school district, the administration. We have a lot of friends on both sides of this fence. Maxwell has really impacted our family pretty deeply. Jarrett went through a tough time, and so he kind of helped us pull Jarrett back into the right path. So from my family, you know, we want to reach out there for Maxwell on his behalf, at least give him that opportunity to really, I don't know the facts, I can only state the facts. The fact is he helped my son out. And I don't know what happened between how everything inspired the way it did, but, you know, you guys got a tough decision, but I'd like to at least put my family there saying, you know what, we really love Coach Maxwell. We'd hate to see anything go or happen to him. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Shelley?
All right, guys. My name is Shelley Book. I had a senior. I can't see you guys when I put this on. I'm sorry. I'm going through the phase of eye changing here. Justin Book, senior linebacker, has known Coach Maxwell, obviously, since he started playing football here, probably even through his junior high days. So I don't need to speak on his character. I wish the boys were given the opportunity that they were prepared to give and come and speak to you all. I mean, if you can get Justin to sit down for 30 to 45 minutes to put a note card together, because he was ready to speak to this board about a month ago, and for some reason the boys were told not to. So I'm sorry that that didn't happen, because you're not seeing, I would say, 10% of the support that you would have seen if that was able to happen. And it's unfortunate that us parents have to get up here and do this after work. So I don't know why that happened, but it did. So I wanted that to be said in this meeting. So I'm here as a citizen, a taxpayer, as a parent of a senior who has nothing to gain from Coach Maxwell being returned to his position, except for the fact that we all know Coach Maxwell did stuff during the season, during the school day, off of season time, keeping in touch with these boys, and I've only seen it for 4 years, so I don't know how much longer it's been going on. And he was obviously a graduate of Belton High School, so again, Belton hired a good coach because he also came from a good school, so congratulations for doing that. I also want to stand here and state some facts that we don't know really what happened, okay? I've been listening to rumors about what happened for over a month now, and that's not how I like to do business, okay? In the professional world, I'm sure that's not how you like to do business. And I would just like for you all to consider a few questions as you take this man's livelihood into your hands tonight. Those questions would be, since this was his livelihood to support his family and himself, and obviously students that couldn't be here tonight, but and other coaches, coaching staff, teachers that he's taught with at this school, would he have really made the decision if he knew he was going to lose his job? Whatever it is that's being decided tonight, that would just be the question I would ask. That to me is the obvious question. If this man is loved by so many people in this community, and students, adults, co-workers, what did he do that would make him lose his job? So I would just ask, as a parent and a taxpayer, if there's a policy in place and there's a procedure, we're adults here and we understand they have to be followed. At the same time, is there a policy and a procedure in place here, or is Coach Maxwell being used as an example of a bigger situation? And if that's the case, how about we learn from this situation and have Coach Maxwell in the situation and not out of it and being made an example of? That would be my question to you as all professionals, taxpayers, people that have to make this decision. Is he being made an example of? Okay. Now, can he learn from that example? And I'm sure he can, and he would not make that mistake again if there's a policy being broken. So that would be my response to what's going on here is get the facts out there. If there's a policy or procedure and he was aware of it and it's broken, we all understand decisions have to be made. But please do not use this man as an example of something else that might be going on, because I think there's too many rumors and talk, and let's just get to the facts and make a professional decision about a man's livelihood here. And obviously he was doing a good job. I sure did miss him during the Cove and the South Grand Prairie game. We know the results of those. If you don't, we lost them both. Thank y'all very much for your time.
Sure. Okay, that's all the forms I have. Is anyone else wishing to address the board? Okay, if you want to come up to the podium. If you'll, sure, that'll work. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
My name is Jesse. I'm here for Al Maxwell too. I know him since we were probably 9 or 10 years old. The bigger issue is the teachers that are on staff that do not relate to everybody in the district. I was here to see the numbers on the housing market, and I bet there's not 5% out there that can relate to those kids that live in that apartment complex, to the ones that live in the $100,000 homes. Those kids are not being taken care of by the district. He's the man that can relate to everybody. The kid that live in the $500,000 home and the kid that lives in the $100,000 home. I also played at Belton High with him. There was a lot more coaches on staff and teachers in the building that cared about those kids back then. I don't see them in the buildings anymore. That's why I transferred my son out of Belton High School. And I know there's a lot of drugs problems going on through high school in Belton High that maybe we should look at the principals and the school board that's not getting that taken care of, and not try to pin it on a black man trying to take a fall for everything else that's going on. And that's all I got.
Jesse? Anyone else? Sure. State your name. If you didn't fill out a form, your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Henry Maxwell, and I stay in Temple right now. But Al is my little brother, and we grew up right on Avenue C. And I had a lot of hardships in life, but Al has always been an inspiration, and that's my little brother, and I look up to my little brother. Because we grew up in the same house. And I came home, I was like, man, why I didn't think like him? You know? And he's a real good dude, man. And I think he makes a lot of decisions from real life experiences, you know? Because I was probably one of those little kids, and he probably just made the best possible decision that he knew to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Anyone else? Come on up. Again, if you didn't fill out a form, if you'll state your name and address.
My name is Amanda Suez. I live
Go
over
ahead.
in Belton. And I'm probably not going to address y'all as much because I'm Coach Maxwell's wife. I just want to speak to the people that spoke on his behalf, if that's okay with y'all.
Sure.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but there's so many of y'all that came out, took time out of y'all's schedule to be here and support him. So I just want to say thank y'all for being here and sharing y'all's positive experiences with him. And I wanted to take that, just an opportunity in a public forum to do that, because y'all don't have to step out and put yourself out there like that. And just me as a person, I cannot speak for him, but I appreciate it because as a family, any coach's family knows you sacrificed. And Al sacrificed more than a lot of people did. We sacrificed time as a family. He sacrificed time as a husband and as a father to be there for y'all's kids. And to know that y'all truly appreciate that is, it means a lot. So thank y'all. The board, I know y'all have a tough decision. I wish y'all the best with that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, man. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none other, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. I will mention that we do have personnel later on in the agenda, although, let me just say this. We obviously are very limited by law on what we can talk about personnel issues. That's to respect the privacy of employees. That is a legal requirement that we will follow. However, that is an item on our agenda later this evening. At this time, we'll move to the consent agenda. Are there any items any board member would like pulled for discussion? Hearing none, let me identify those items on the consent agenda. We have the minutes of the November 13th, 2017 regular meeting, the unaudited financial report for the month ending November 30th, 2017. We have other revenues grants from private sources. As I mentioned earlier, the Belton Education Enrichment Foundation has donated $46,502.55 for innovative teaching grants. Very appreciative of that great community support for our teachers and our schools. We have the supply, equipment, and service bids. Construction audit services RFQ 1711-750173 to approve the list of qualified firms R.L. Townsend and Associates, Weaver, J.A. Cost Engineers and Advisors, Inc., HPM Audit and Contract Services. And we also have the Career and Technical Education Equipment Supplies and Services Supplemental 1 RFP 1710002-165 to approve the vendor list. This contract will be effective through December 31st, 2018 with one automatic renewal. We have the Cooperative Purchasing Program Fee Report, which is a report only as required. We have the resolution adopting the authorized broker dealer list to approve the resolution for the investment broker list as presented. We have the development agreement with West Tanglefoot Development, Inc., as we have previously discussed, and we have the memorandum of agreement for attendance and PEAMS assessment services with Education Service Center Region 12. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda? Motion for Ms. Jordan, second for Mr. Camden. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Next item is superintendent's report.
Okay, I have two fairly quick items this evening. First, just want to update you on elementary and secondary academic UIL. This past Saturday, we had a total of 541 elementary students from all 9 elementary schools who participated in our academic UIL meet, which was held this year at the BHS 9 because none of our elementary schools are big enough for that event anymore. So that was a first for us. We had events in areas such as art memory, chess, creative writing, dictionary, listening, music memory, ready writing, number sense, oral reading, spelling, and storytelling. In addition, there were 235 students who submitted an art project for judging and competition. We also had approximately 140 staff members who served as coaches, judges, campus coordinators, and event directors. And we just want to appreciate our teachers who coached those students in those events. before and after school and giving of their time to make that happen for our students. It's really a great opportunity for our students to compete academically, and they get to choose their areas of interest, and so it's really good for them to enrich and enhance their skills. Awards will be given at the elementary level at the campus at special ceremonies, and students who placed in the top 6 places of each event will receive an award. At the middle school, the event was held the week prior. That was at North Belton Middle School with 281 students participating. That event was with all 3 Belton Middle Schools, and Midway Middle School also participated. Similar events, art, calculator applications, dictionary, editorial writing, listening, maps, graphs and charts, music memory, number sense, oral reading, ready writing, science, social studies, and spelling. And we had about 75 of our BISD staff members who served as coaches, judges, campus coordinators, and event directors. And the overall winner of the middle school UIL event this year was North Belton Middle School. And we're just super proud of all of our students. And I want to thank all of our staff who went above and beyond to help with the elementary and the secondary events. And would like to especially thank Christina Flores, Cindy Wiley, Tanya Salee, and Amanda Curlow for coordinating those 2 events. Fall update presentations. Thank you to those of you who've been able to attend our fall update presentations over the last couple of weeks. Those have gone very well. It's our opportunity to get out, visit with our staff, tell them thank you, wish them a Merry Christmas, provide them with a Christmas gift, and just really get to touch them. And so we did produce a video this year. I think most of you have seen it. It's about 8 minutes long, really focused on our 2017-2018 priorities. And I want to thank Robert Pryor for helping produce that this year. We plan to link that video in our key communicator this week so we can share that with the public so that they can hear about the things that we're working on, because it's really classroom driven in those 2017-18 priorities that we set. Thanks again for supporting our gift to our employees each year. It's not much, but it means a lot to our staff that we would go out and hand them something personally and appreciate them. We have 5 more update sessions remaining this week, so if you haven't been able to make one, let me encourage you to come. Tomorrow we will be at Pirtle Elementary and Lake Belton Middle School after school. On Wednesday, we're at Southwest Elementary and South Belton Middle School. And then on Friday, we are at Belton High School at 1:30. And that is after students finish their finals. And I think in conjunction with they're having lunch over there on Friday. So if you can make any of those, we'd love to have you. Thank you. You have any questions?
Just mention that, appreciate you doing that, and echo what you said. Robert did a great job of videoing you all. But you all did a great job of communicating succinctly and eloquently what's going on. I still want to see the blooper reel. But great job.
There were some. All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, we've already mentioned this, that we would be hearing from Rochelle Warren about the No Place for Hate program. Come on up and tell us. We introduced you with a Big Red Community Partner Award, but I want to thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to spend a lot of time in your district over this last year and a half or so, and you have a phenomenal community and one that is truly dedicated to ensuring that all students feel included and respected in the school district on their campuses and within the district as a whole. So what I'd like to do this evening is provide for you a quick overview in the way that I introduced it to campus and district administrators a little more than a year ago. No Place for Hate is one of the Anti-Defamation League's signature programs. It has become one of my personal favorites because it is both free and it really highlights and prioritizes student input. So when we're talking about No Place for Hate as a program, it is something that is designed to bring the campus community together within a national network of campus communities who are all investing intentionally in creating environments that will sustain the kind of respectful inclusion that we know is important for all of our students to be able to focus on their academic goals. So the way that it works is this three-step program. It is very, very simple, but you first get together a group of students and adult members that represent your staff, the community that's there. The coalition then decides what 3 campus-wide activities are going to be done during the course of the school year. It is important that this take the entire school year for those activities to happen. This is not a quick focus. It is not something that you do in a day or a week. It is something that you engage in over the course of the entire year. And then by following through on those activities, we get to the end of the year, and you'll see the happy day that happens with that. With the programming, what makes a difference with No Place for Hate is the fact that you go to your students and you ask them, what is it that you are experiencing? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What do you think would make a difference on our campus to really allow you and those that you know and that you want to know feel like they're all a part of our campus community? And from that input, that's how the activities are determined and the conversations that happen from there. With the coalition, it is representative of the campus community, so no 2 coalitions look the same. It should be student dominant, meaning that there are more student voices that are represented than any others, but we need those adults because they're the ones that have access to the calendars and the keys and those different logistical details. But it's truly that student voice that allows the coalitions to function in such a way that they're able to take care of the entire community on their campus.
Can I ask a question there?
Yes.
Students, does that mean, for example, in an elementary school that all grade levels are representative?
Every grade level. Those of you who've been out and about on an elementary campus know that really and truly, if we just let kindergartners stay in charge, they could rule the world, and we'd all be happier as a result. I've seen incredible things come from our youngest students in much the same way that our older students are able to speak really eloquently about the kinds of issues that concern them and the ways that they think that they can make a difference on their campus. So one of the things that makes No Place for Hate so powerful is the fact that it does work on any campus, any configuration, any age, and it's because you're listening to your students. And so while you might not have your first grader go out and make a presentation to parents, that first grader can definitely tell you if they feel safe on the playground or not. And if they feel like they have friends who are really nice to them or who make them feel uncomfortable or scared even. And it's that kind of input that allows the programming to be determined. The kinds of things that can happen cover the full gamut of anti-bias and anti-bullying topics. So really anything that would allow students to feel more empowered, that would allow them to relax into the learning is probably appropriate for No Place for Hate activity. We provide some materials that allow campuses to determine what activities might really work for them. These are things that are freely available on our website, and they're everything from table talks, which are geared toward community members and families to have conversations about current events, to lesson plans that have been designed with an appreciation and respect for the instructor who's going to use them. So pointing out the connections to academic objectives, making sure to incorporate the fact that there are other things happening, but that this is important for students to be able to talk about. There are book lists. There is a blog that is dedicated to providing real language and practice for teachers to support their students. So a variety of things that can be accessed on our website for free for teachers to use. In addition, every campus receives a copy of our No Place for Hate guide. And that has some actual activity ideas. It has a calendar that's incorporated of a variety of cultural celebrations. It has Pyramid of Hate, which is a tool that allows conversation to happen about different types of bias and discrimination in a way that kind of de-emphasizes the emotion that can cause those conversations to be so contrary. But there are a variety of things that they're given in this kit to jumpstart their ideas. But really it starts by just looking at what the campus already has to offer, the kinds of things they're already doing, and seeing how those support the creation and sustaining of this inclusive environment. At the end of their year, where they've done all 3 of the activities, they receive a No Place for Hate banner. And I hope that you've seen those hanging around on the different campuses that participated last year. And this banner, in the same way that any other recognition is meant to do, congratulates the students and the staff members on the intentional effort that they've invested in really creating an environment that's going to support all students. And it also reminds them that it's time to gear up for another year. And so we're very happy to see that campuses who earned their banner last year are back again this year, starting this fight, renewing their dedication to ensuring that all of their students have that feeling of connection and know that they are going to be respected as they are figuring out exactly what they want to do and how they want to contribute to their larger communities. So I have had, again, like I said, the pleasure of being in Belton ISD quite often during this last year and a half, and am gearing up for a busy spring when we go beyond No Place for Hate to doing some anti-bias training for your teachers and staff members. So thank you all very much. We appreciate the recognition this evening, but more importantly, we respect the work that you're doing to make sure that all of your students really do have a place that feels like home here in Belton ISD. Thank you.
Dr. Warren, hang on just a second. We may have some questions. I don't want to give everybody an opportunity, but let me first say thank you. I've heard many comments from people just appreciating you particularly and your efforts in working with our staff and with these programs. You've made a difference in our schools and in our community by your presence and by the resources and training you've provided. So thank you for that. We really do appreciate your work with us and your commitment to helping us get better. That's our goal. So, anybody have any questions specifically for Dr. Warren? We got this stuff. Thank you. We've been hearing about it, so it's really nice to get kind of the official word from you and get all that. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for coming and spending some time with us this evening. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay. Jennifer Ramirez, next up, Special Education Ames Program.
Good evening. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like there are many things happening in the area of special programs, and this is a very small piece, but an important piece of my department and the work that we're doing. I'm going to start out just talking about the district and about special education, and then I'll get more specific into AIMS, which stands for Applying Inner Motivation for Success. And if you've been here 10 plus years, you may have known the same general service or program used to be called Focus. So, of course, I start with just the reminder of what our district is doing. Our vision for all special education students is the same as the vision for all Belton ISD students, and our mission is to teach and do really good work so that all of our students excel. And that's one of our students from athletes from Special Olympics. So the way that special programs works is that you have this overall all-student population, and we have the numbers up there. Then you have students with impairments, and then that's broken down into some separate parts. So you have 504 students. Those are students who have impairments that limit their abilities in one or more areas. And we have the number there. And then students who have impairments that require specially designed instruction are the students who are eligible under IDEA or special education. So all students in special education are receiving some kind of specially designed instruction, and it could be academic, it could be behavioral, it could be social emotional. And these students get accommodations, they might receive modifications, and some of them even receive an alternate curriculum. So, of course, as we've talked about tonight, our district is growing, our special ed numbers are growing, and this is the 6-year enrollment that we've had. And then we broke down special education by disability, and this is primary disability, so students may have more than one disability, but this is their first primary disability. There's actually 12 categories. We have no students currently who are considered both deaf and blind, so there's 11 categories here on our chart. And you can see how those numbers have changed over time.
Can you give me an example of what other health impairment means?
Sure. So our OHI, or other health impairment students, are many times students with ADHD, but it could be any other kind of medical diagnosis or something that just doesn't fit in another category. So we're looking for things that are causing them not to learn like everyone else, that just don't fit another category. But it's mostly students with ADHD. So these are in no particular order, but in Belton ISD, we have 7 different settings that students who receive special education may be served in, and these vary from district to district. So our general education setting is where students have inclusion support. Teachers and paraprofessionals go into the general ed classroom to assist students with their accommodations and modifications. The resource classroom, students are being pulled out for a varying amount of time to receive more intense, smaller group services. Functional academics and life skills, those times also vary. We have some students who stay in those classrooms the majority of the day, and some who just receive some extra support from those different instructional settings. We have AIMS. Those are students receiving social, emotional, behavioral support. And then PPCD is our preschool program for children with disabilities, and those are little ones, age 3 to 5. And then our Delta program is our 18 plus, and that's for students who have pretty much met the requirements for graduation. However, they have other goals that they're working on as they continue to transition from their school schedule to their adult schedule. So now let's focus a little bit on AIMS, and our 3-year enrollment in AIMS is here. However, I'll go ahead and tell you that the first 2, the 15, 16, 16, 17 columns, those are end of the year numbers. And so when you see our 17, 18, that's of December 1st. So as you look at those, even though it looks like we have less students, typically by the end of the school year, and with our growing numbers of students in special education, there is a good possibility that we'll meet or exceed the numbers from last year. So AIMS is on 4 campuses. Our elementary students who receive AIMS services are at Tarver and Lakewood, and middle school goes to Lake Belton Middle School for those services, and then of course we have it at Belton High School. So AIMS students have a varying number of primary disabilities as well. So the majority of students, 81%, have the meet the eligibility criteria of emotional disturbance. 9% meet the eligibility for that other health impairment that we just talked about, and 9% for autism, and then 1% have an intellectual disability. So through our ongoing needs assessment process, as we begin to grow, we have started to see that we need to implement a system-wide approach to how we're serving students who are in AIMS. We want Lakewood and Tarver kids to be receiving the same level and quality of service, And when they go to middle school, we want them to have the same vocabulary, the same data collection, receiving the same services they go to middle school, and then again to high school. And so we started looking through different programs to say what system could we use so that we're all on the same page, moving in the same direction. And we began to look, and we found Emergent Tree. We visited some campuses who are implementing Emergent Tree. And so tonight I have two people here from Emergent Tree Education. And tonight May Kaufman is going to speak with us about Emergent Tree.
Thank you. All right. Can you hear me okay? All right. I'm usually a little bit of like a dynamic as I talk, and I tend to pace, so I'll try really hard to stay, generally in this area so you can hear me well. As Jennifer said, my name is May Kaufman, and I work with Emergent Tree Education, and we really focus on working with schools and school districts to put in place behavioral systems for students that kind of fall into that category that Jennifer just described, students that struggle in the area of behavior, whether they have a disability or honestly some of our kiddos who haven't been diagnosed with a disability but have some of those behavioral challenges that interfere with their ability to be successful in our schools. So we talk about how our real focus at Emergent Tree is those behavioral solutions, but with a systems focus and an instructional approach. So I appreciate the time tonight to talk a little bit and just give you a quick overview of how we do that and what our focus is so you guys will have a better understanding as a board about what's going on in those schools that we've been working with particularly. When we talk about our educational system kind of as a whole, certainly we always think about academics, right? That's the reason we're in business. That's the reason we do what we do, is to make sure our kids are prepared for those academic challenges after they leave us, prepared for careers. But when you think about the educational system, we liken it to a tree. And you really do have that idea of what are we teaching? What's the curriculum? And that's at that trunk of the tree, right? It's aligned. And then when you think about what we do, how do we deliver our curriculum, that's the branches. And as a former teacher, that's the exciting part, right? You're always developing your tree and growing it further in all those different techniques you use. But really at Emergent Tree, one of the things we've realized is that if you haven't addressed behavior really proactively and in a systems way, then the rest of your tree doesn't develop as fully as it can. And so everything we do is certainly designed to meet the needs of kids in schools, but we focus on behavior, we focus on the roots of the tree and building a healthy system overall. So I wanted to kind of share with you guys some of the current outcomes for kids that fall into this group of kind of with and at risk for some of those behavioral disorders. And when I talk about the outcomes, it's not specific just to Belton ISD. It's really kind of across the nation. What do we see as the effects for this group of kids? And I know it's sort of small for you guys over there, but we certainly see some short-term outcomes for this group of students. This is usually a group of students who are frequently removed from the instructional setting due to maybe behavioral issues, and therefore then they kind of have a decreased access to good quality instruction. They've been removed from the setting. They're lacking those peer role models, and they just kind of start into this cycle where they're not successful academically, they act out more behaviorally, we remove them more from classrooms. So certainly those short-term outcomes affect their day-to-day achievement in our schools. But when you look at the more long-term outcomes, they're even maybe more concerning. This group of individuals historically has shown highest rates of unemployment of all kind of disability categories, largest number of kind of involvement with law enforcement, things like incarceration rates, mortality rates. There's higher numbers of young pregnancy, abusive relationships, just lots and lots of statistics just illustrating that this group of students tends to not have the success we would wish for all our kids after they leave us. And a lot of those questions come out like, well, why? Why is that this outcome we're having with this particular group of kids that's been static, I would say, for the last 30 years? There's been multiple kind of transition studies that have shown that the outcomes that we saw in the 70s stayed static in the 90s when they redid the same study, and they're likely to be static again as the next transition study comes out because we just haven't really met those students' needs proactively. I would argue that the way we, when I say we, it's the larger educational we kind of across the nation and certainly our state as well, how do we typically address behavior in education? And I would say people tend to fall into these two camps in terms of philosophy. You either fall into that camp of, well, if you're asking me how I should approach behavior in education, well, we need to have stricter consequences, and we need to really think through our code of conduct, and what are we going to do as we kind of move up those ladder of consequences, and that would be the most appropriate way to address behavior issues, and kind of falling more into that thinking of the punishment side. And then I certainly come across plenty of people that say, yeah, well, wait a minute, we really need to think about the positive. How do we build relationships with our kids so they want to come to school and they won't misbehave because they love to be here? And they fall more on maybe that positive side. And I would say I see agreement in both of those, right? Certainly you need to have consequences, and we don't want to ignore misbehavior when it happens. But in the same time, we want to build relationships with our kids. But I would say that both of those kind of miss the mark, and that we can all find common ground, whichever side you might lean a little bit more to, in the idea that we can take an instructional approach to behavior, and that we can do what we know how to do really well as educators, which is instruct. We know how to do that, so let's bring that into how we address behavior as well. That means basically taking those challenging behaviors and saying, when I see challenging behavior, it's a sign that there's some sort of gap. And there's either what we would call a skill gap, meaning the student actually doesn't know what they should have done in the situation. They're lacking that skill to perform. And in that case, we want to teach the skills they're missing. Or more commonly, and what I'd argue even those of us as adults run into sometimes, is there's a performance gap, meaning under certain circumstances with certain stressors, certain kind of what we call setting events in place, we don't perform the skill that we know in our head, but it just doesn't come out in our performance. And in that case, we still teach. We teach strategies, we teach ways that our students can perform those skills they know better next time when they're in those same kind of situations. So we take that challenging behavior and we say, it's a sign that something's missing. We do this with academics. So when you think about what we do academically, we know how to deliver the content. We identify what are those skills they need. We teach it in those models of, I'm going to do it as the teacher, then we're going to do it together as a class before you do it independently. We have our TEKs that guide our instruction, and we make accommodations, kind of like Jennifer mentioned, when students struggle. And then when we see skill mastery in academics, we do things like letting kids know. We give those verbal praise. We give grades. We give them awards and honors, and we then go to deeper depth and complexity. And then when we see skill non-mastery, we don't tell them to try harder. We look at ourselves as teachers and say, well, how can I reteach this? How can I use other examples? How can I hook to what they already know and build on that strength to try and reach them? And we would argue that that's what we need to be at doing a better job kind of on the whole in education when we address behavior. What do we want to teach? What are we going to do when kids master those skills? Not just, well, they should know it anyway. Let's let them know they're doing those skills and those behavioral kind of competencies, and let them know that. And then also when there's not mastery, let's make sure we're coming back to the table to say, what's the gap there? What's the skill or the performance gap? And how can we try and reteach, reassess, and really still address it instructionally so that we can actually move forward with our kids? We know good instruction. It's just sometimes when it comes to behavior, we sort of throw all that out the window and revert back to maybe our own personal, how we grew up or how we were raised, and instead of really saying, but what do we know how to do really well in education? And that's instruct. A story I always like to kind of share as a good example of what would this look like in reality is there was a study that was done at the University of Toronto, and it was studying lying behavior in children. And what they did was they took two groups of kids, and to one group of kids they read the story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And then to another group of kids they read George Washington and the Cherry Tree. And both of those stories deal with lying behavior. So the kids that were read The Boy Who Cried Wolf, it's about lying and how if you lie, there are some really negative consequences to that. People won't believe you, your sheep will be eaten, all these things. So the moral is kind of based on that idea of don't do something. Don't lie or else, right? Stop lying. when you think about the story of George Washington and the cherry tree, it's also about lying, but it approaches from the idea of what should you do. So in that story, right, George Washington tells the lie. When confronted, his father, he tells the truth, and his father praises his honest behavior. You know, the tree was worth more than gold, but so much more is your honesty. And so it's about the same idea, except instead of saying, don't lie, they say, tell the truth. That's honorable. You'll have people respect you. It's doing the right thing. And then what they did is with all the students, regardless of kind of which group they'd been read, they had them individually come in and meet with this researcher. And the researcher said, hey, we're going to now play a game, and I have a toy in this bag, and I'm going to see if you can guess what's in the bag. And then they're conveniently called out of the room. And as soon as they leave, they say, well, I'll be right back, but don't look in the bag. And they leave the room. It actually didn't matter which story they had been read. The kids look in the bag because they can't handle it. They're like so curious, they gotta know what the toy is. Regardless, most of them peeked in the bag and looked at the toy. When the researcher came back in the room, they said, so did you look in the bag? And overwhelmingly, the kids that were read, the boy who cried wolf said, I didn't look in the bag. I didn't look. And the kids that have been read George Washington and the Cherry Tree said, yeah, I looked in the bag. Just illustrating, they had just been told, don't lie. It's horrible. Your sheep will be eaten. And when faced with the actual circumstance, they didn't know what to do instead. And sometimes when it comes to behavior, we do that a little bit too much. As parents, I'm a parent myself, as educators, we sometimes focus on what's going wrong and we just want to stop it. And we do all these things to suppress it and control it, when the best way to actually get the long-term result is we can respond to behavior in the moment. Certainly we can have a consequence, but if we don't also pair it with what are we going to do to teach and prompt what we want to see take its place, we won't actually see change in behavior long-term. And so that's really where we come from in terms of what we're trying to do. We're going to take an instructional approach to behavior. And there's a couple barriers that keep us from doing that. I would say, again, on the whole, as I go around the state, I see these in place in most districts, and some of these may speak to you more than others about maybe things that you've experienced, particularly in the AIMS program. But the first one's the idea of just there's that lack of alignment, right? We have a variety of staff members that all come from varied backgrounds themselves, their own philosophies, and making sure we all have alignment onto that instructional approach is lacking a lot of times. And so that's one of the things that might be a barrier that your staff experienced maybe before having some of our involvement, hopefully, in that positive way. A second barrier is the idea that Jennifer referred to, where we have different things going on at elementary than when they move to middle school, than when they move to high school. So every time they have one of those transitions, we see further regression in kids, more so than what we'd expect with just a normal transition. Because I've got to adjust to all new policies and procedures and interventions. But when we can have that common language, all of a sudden we see kids able to move from these different teachers and service providers a lot more fluidly and miss less of that kind of instructional disruption. And then the last barrier is that idea that we oftentimes will have direct service providers, our teachers, maybe our paraprofessionals, and they just have a limited toolbox when it comes to behavior. I know from my own personal start, I was a special ed teacher, and I had majored in it, and I'd gone to all these classes in it, but when it came to the actual implementation, I struggled with kids who had those behavioral disorders and those behavior disabilities because I just wasn't really prepared with a good, deep toolbox. And many of our teachers want to be in those positions, but they haven't been afforded that chance with their teacher prep program to really be prepared for what do I do when confronted with some of these pretty significant behaviors in the classroom. And so that can certainly lead to being a barrier to implementing quality instruction. So our solution is that one of the things we do is when we come out, we partner with districts and we really invest in the system. Not that we don't want to invest in individual teachers, but what we want to do is help build a system that no matter who is in the role, we can continue the progress we're making with kids. Because we never know when a fantastic teacher is going to have another opportunity and leave, or they retire, and all of a sudden we have new people coming in. And if we've only focused on individual teachers or even individual kids, what are we going to do with this one kid? Then we haven't really built something that can sustain over time, regardless of what student walks through our door. So we really want to build a system that will help sustain. And that will be that alignment, that idea that if we can all be moving in the same direction, then we're going to make that exponential progress. Then if we're all kind of closing our classroom doors and doing our own thing, even if they're all really good things, we miss that opportunity to really kind of exponentially grow. So what does that look like? We base everything we do on that idea of a multi-tiered system. Many of you may be familiar with that idea or that term. You can also hear the term thrown around response to intervention, or RTI. It's that same idea of a multi-tiered approach. Positive behavior interventions and support, or PBIS, is oftentimes discussed. That is also this multi-tiered framework model. And it's the idea that we want to consider, what do we do for all kids, every kid? What do we do when kids start to be at risk? And then what do we do when we have the highest risk kids, those highest need students? And at Emergent Tree, that's where we've really partnered with your district this year. We certainly support all those levels, but this year we've really partnered with your special ed department, specifically your AIMS programs, in providing some training and a system to put in place for those kids that are really at that highest need of support. We call that Solid Roots, the training that we've previously done. I'll talk in just a moment about that. And then coming in January, we'll be providing a training called Heart of Behavior that helps teachers with more tools for investigating what's going on with those behavioral needs. One of the things we do, and this one, I'm sorry, is not animating on the areas, but basically when we come into a district, we do some training. So that's your first pie piece. Then we follow it up with coaching, and we come on campuses and meet with individual teachers and leaders on those campuses to talk about how's it going on your specific campus. And then as we get into the spring semester, we actually collect some data on the fidelity with which it's being implemented, and that'll be information that you guys as a board will be able to see come kind of the end of the spring related to how well have each of our campuses put in place these processes that they've been trained on. And then we've been collaborating really closely with your special ed department, your behavior specialist, to make sure that as we come in and coach, they're alongside us, because we want to make sure that as we step away and are off working with maybe somebody else, that they can continue that progress that your teachers are making and continue that support. This is kind of an overview of what we've done. Like I said, we did that Solid Roots training in the summer and then the coaching in the fall. There's some software that is helping teachers to gather data related to how much progress are students making. And then we did a specific training at the request of Lakewood Elementary for their whole staff, just related to a little bit of what I'm telling you here, the idea of what is that science behind behavior change and what does that mean? And so it was a whole staff training for them on a staff development day in the fall. Come the spring, we'll be doing that training that's really related to data collection and writing quality behavior plans for students. And then we'll do that data collection and that program review and be able to report back to the campuses and also to you guys as well about where are our campuses in terms of that fidelity and that implementation. Ultimately, I'd kind of say what we're trying to accomplish is that idea of sort of shifting our behavior practice. And some of you may be familiar with the ham story. If you're not, humor me. But there was a little girl, and she watched her mom making a ham one day for dinner. And as her mom was cooking the ham, she cut the ends off the ham. And the girl said, well, why do you do that? Why do you cut the ends off the ham? And the mom said, well, I don't know. It's just what Mom always did. So she's like, that's a good question. I'll text Mom. So she texts Mom and says, why do you cut the ends off the ham? And the mom says, well, that's what Nana always did. So they call up Nana. Nana, why did you cut the ends of the ham off before you bake it? And she said, well, it's the only way it fits in the pan. And it just sort of illustrates that sometimes we do that, and I would say we do that in the area of behavior a little bit too much sometimes, where we say, well, it's what was always done. It's worked for me, maybe. But when we look at those historical outcomes, I would argue that there's a large group of kids that it hasn't always worked for. And that if we don't take a different approach, we're just going to be doing what we've always done without actually stepping back and saying, but why do we do that? And what's the outcome we've seen? So what would we expect to see? So here's just a few bullets of what we hope you will accomplish from this involvement with us and this training we're doing. Behavior staff sort of move away from maybe being seen as a disciplinarian into an interventionist. They are there to intervene and change behavior in a positive way. Invest and plan for students based on what is at the heart of their behavior, what's the root. address those skill and performance gaps, and provide as much support as possible in a proactive way, rather than waiting for the reactive. Don't wait for things to happen, actually plan ahead and say, what can we do to prevent behaviors as much as possible, while we will still have to, of course, respond when things happen. And then monitoring and adjusting as we go. We base everything on data, individual student data, as well as programmatic, where are we and what adjustments do we need to make. That's all I got. I tend to talk really quickly, so I apologize. Do you have any questions for me?
Let me first mention, I know why I've heard positive feedback about your training. You have a lot of high energy and
I do.
And it's really good information.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I've heard that, and we got to experience that, and I
Good.
appreciate that.
Good.
I do have a question. What have you seen outcome-wise as a result of your training?
So
in our district, not nationwide, but
yeah.
what have you seen here?
So I can speak specifically. I have actually a personnel with me today who's been your specific coach as well. We have seen several teachers that already had really good behavior skill, but just adapt and take on some of these new tools that maybe were new for them, and just find and give us feedback that it has helped them to streamline maybe something they always kind of knew in their head, but it's helped to solidify and give them a better direction. Specifically to a few of your elementary schools, you have some programs that have just really integrated that data collection and moved forward with really specific plans for kids. We've seen administrators who really now have some of the language and the understanding of what should I see in some of these specialized programs. I think when it comes to maybe any program sometimes within special ed, unless that's really something you experienced yourself as a teacher, when you move into that administrative role, you don't actually know what does quality support look like when I'm watching that program. It's kind of this island by themselves. So we feel like a lot of your administrators have now gained that idea of what should I see? What does it look like? What should my expectations be of some of those teachers in those roles?
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
And you may probably answered this and I just missed it. So this is not just for special ed teachers at these campuses, it's for all teachers at the campuses?
That's a great question. So the initial training that we've done, the Solid Roots training, that's very intensive. It's like 3 days of training, 2 in the summer and a follow-up, and then coaching. That has been really specifically for your AIM staff, and then the administrators have oftentimes come along with them as well. What we've done for Lakewood Elementary is also on their request, we came and did kind of an overview more on how does behavior work, does human behavior work. That kind of provides an anchor and sort of a foundation to what we're doing in Solid Roots. But that has been the only, I guess, general ed staff that we have presented to.
I guess, my concern would be for regular ed teachers who have sometimes periodically inclusion students coming into their classrooms, they need to be on board. They need to have full-on training like everybody else, in my opinion, because they're teaching them too.
Yeah.
So
and they're an integral part of it.
I can address that. We certainly are open to that, given the opportunity. We did not plan that. We didn't even actually plan the Lakewood presentation of the science of behavior in our initial proposal for what Emergent Tree was doing, but we're certainly open and waiting for the opportunity to do that at any of the campuses. The tools and things that May has brought to us are being used in pockets, even at some other campuses where we had administrators come or additional people move around. And so I hope that this will be a growing set of tools that we can use.
Janet, I'd agree with you. You don't have to be, and I think you had a graph up there, a chart, general population and the highest risk. And you're working with the highest risk, clearly, and which makes sense for what you're doing. But there you go. But clearly, all students need behavioral training. All students need this instructional approach.
Well, and I was remiss.
Would benefit from.
I was remiss in
students. Let me say that again. All of us would benefit from an instructional approach.
Yeah.
To improve our coping mechanisms.
Yes. Well, and I didn't make you guys go through the exercise, but when we do the training with staff, we oftentimes, when we get to that challenging behavior skill gap, performance gap, we make them pull out examples of adults and times we've had a skill gap where we didn't know the right behavior and we did like a misstep that was perceived as rude, but it's just because I didn't know in this situation that was appropriate, right? right? Or oftentimes performance gaps. How many times have you walked away and been like, maybe I should have said that different? Or, you know, we all have those moments, and our kids certainly do as well. I was remiss in when I talked about this slide, I had wanted to mention, I think there's a lot of initiatives you guys are doing outside of what you're doing with Emergent Tree that are also filled into that pyramid. For instance, I know you guys are doing some CHAMPS training, which is really specific classroom management, and that would fall into that all students. Really what you're doing with No Place for Hate, right? That idea of building that understanding, that social emotional, that goes into that all students.
It's really no mistake that
that we're planned together.
Because these do fit, and it's what we're working on.
You know, and as a teacher, I can tell you that then the concern becomes, okay, I got to do this program and this one, and I got to keep all the steps separate for each one. And if we can somehow take the philosophy, which I truly believe is behind all of it, and mesh it really into one common goal about how do we treat other people, how do we behave, how do we become productive citizens, all of those things go together with all these programs.
Yes.
So I think teachers get frustrated, though, when it's this.
Well, and I think if they're presented with information kind of based on the idea of the multi-tiered system, then this idea that it's not, oh, well, we're doing this initiative now, does that mean that one's out the door? No, in fact, many of them just help to fill out your triangle, right, your pyramid, and that with these multiple initiatives, they work together. And I think that's a great point, that if we don't illustrate that sometimes for teachers, they don't know the kind of the bigger vision always. They just know what they're being told today to do. And so being able to communicate that vision maybe in a visual like that says, hey, how are all these initiatives all a part of what we're trying to accomplish to build the behavioral skills of our kids? I think that's a great point.
And I guess the other part of that is we're just giving them additional tools for their toolbox.
Yeah.
As new students with new issues, and so versatility.
Well, it all fits together. The CHAMPS, the No Place for Hate. We're doing some work with our guidance counselors and curriculum with social emotional learning, and all of those pieces go together. But what May's been working on is that top of that triangle, and getting that into the Ames classrooms is a lengthy process to implement a really good structure for kids to be successful with that percentage of students that are having those really severe behaviors. And so it is an ongoing process, and we appreciate the work that you've done already to get us going.
Well, we feel honored to work with the district and hope to continue that partnership as we move forward. So any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and helping educate us. We benefited from that.
Great. Thank you.
And maybe recognize some of the needs that we have. Okay, Jennifer, you want to come talk to us about an annual investment report and revisions to CDA local investments?
Good evening, President Pittenger, board members, Dr. Kincannon. I'm standing here before you today to briefly discuss our annual investment policy, and that is local policy CDA. And I have with me Linda Patterson. She is with Patterson and Associates, and at the district we have engaged her services in terms of an investment advisor. And part of her services include the annual review of the policy to make sure that we are in compliance. And there were some legislative changes that were made to make that necessitated us making some changes to that policy. So we're here tonight for the first reading of that policy, and we will be bringing back to you in January the second reading, as well as the resolution acknowledging that you have read through the policy and you accept those changes. But I also wanted to bring Linda in front of you because another part of her investment advisory services is making sure that we are utilizing those brokers that you previously approved, and that we are investing our funds and getting the biggest bang for our buck for the district, and making sure that that return on investment we can utilize elsewhere. So I'm going to let Linda speak to you briefly about the changes.
Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, and thank you, Jennifer. We're looking forward to the opportunity of working with the district and the staff here. And we've started going through the policy, looking at your procedures, and we'll be working hand in hand for anything that's involved in the Treasury area. Instead of going through each and every one of the red line report, which I'm sure you don't want this evening, I'm thinking that there are really three major categories where these changes were made in the policy. And the first is, of course, statutory compliance. We have a legislature every 2 years, and they always make changes to the law with investments. And it wasn't any different this year. Some of the broker-dealer certifications were now just the pool certified to your policy was one of the changes, although we've recommended that the board also insist upon that policy going to each one of the brokers and dealers, even though they don't certify of the review of them. So that's a clarification and a recommendation just for your safety factors too. Also, there's some clarification on the definitions of certificates of deposit. There are many kinds of certificates of deposit, so we've tried to break the policy up so that it's very clear what the district wants and what you demand as far as what's in those CDs. And finally, the list that Jennifer mentioned about the broker-dealers, which has to be approved on an annual basis by the board statutorily, and we have made the recommendations as to what brokers, to give you a wider span, to utilize those brokers for trades going forward. So the first major category of changes involves statutory compliance. The second one is strategic. In working with your ongoing funds, but also with the new bond funds that you're getting, we've been discussing establishing a laddered portfolio, a portfolio that addresses asset allocation by maturity, by market sector, making it a more planned portfolio. And part of that will also be commingling the funds into one big portfolio, although you'll not lose any of the reporting that you get currently. And hopefully on your second reading, we'll bring you back some examples of what you might look forward to on the reporting on an ongoing basis. Two of the major changes that are recommended in the policy are, one, to extend the maximum stated maturity that can be bought by the school district. It's currently set at 1 year, which is the standard coming out of TASB, but we're suggesting that you extend that to 3 years. Your bond funds and the expenditure plans on those are going to take 3 years. It doesn't mean that we're going to use that, but it gives you the opportunity to lengthen and add yield to the portfolio without adding any risk to it. In the same manner, we're recommending that the weighted average maturity of the portfolio be expanded from or extended from 6 months to 12 months. And that's just going to give you, it's more a reflection of what your money is and how you spend your money. You don't start at ground zero at the first day of the year and end up with no money at the end of the year. You have money that goes longer, and this allows us to use it a little bit more effectively for you. Another strategic area would be to add a liquidity buffer, which is mentioned in the policy now, so that you're always, all those unanticipated things that happen, buses that break an axle, HVAC that goes out, that we always have money available in the portfolio for you to match those. So 1, it's compliance, 2, it's strategic, and 3, very much so, what we focus on is safety. Safety of your funds, safety of the investment of those funds, matching the cash flow. Some of the things that were added and emphasized in the new policy is delivery versus payment, which means that the district never releases its money on anything without receiving that asset. And of course, Jennifer and Superintendent can kind of understand too that we never touch your money, we never touch your assets. It's us advising your staff. So the delivery versus payment, the collateral, since you're a public entity, anything over FDIC insurance in a time or demand deposit gets collateralized. That's one of the most important safety factors for public money. And we've added that to the policy to make sure that everybody's well aware of what that situation is. And finally, that we want to make sure that everything that you do, every trade that you look at it, every option that you evaluate is done on a competitive, equal basis. So those are the three major areas for the changes in the policy. And as Jennifer said, it'll be coming back to you on second reading, and hopefully we'll have some reporting to show you at that time.
Great.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Great. Appreciate you providing it for us for reading and the opportunity to get better. Thank you.
I look forward to it.
Is this going to help us make a better return on our investment of our bond proceeds while we're waiting to pay for our construction?
I'm SEC registered, so I can't say.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
But I can pretty much tell you, you're going to like them. So.
Okay, I think you were here earlier. We just were able to refinance some bonds and save our taxpayers $6.8 million. We like those kind of things. And as trustees of the public funds, we want to be very vigilant about being good stewards of that money. So thank you. We appreciate your report and look forward to what you have to bring back for us. We've been sitting here for a while, and we're going to be sitting here for a little while. So it's 7:37. We're going to take a brief break. If you need to stretch or use the restroom, and we'll just for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to reconvene in open session, or reconvene from our break, I should say. And we're going to take up our consideration of our construction projects. Dr. Muller, come on up. And Jared.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Pittenger and board. This is an opportunity for the board to approve the ranking of proposals on Elementary 11 and the Wall Street Auditorium and Lakewood Elementary projects. About a year ago, first of all, let me thank the proposers. We had 7.
Is your mic on?
I think so.
I want to make sure we're picking up.
Yeah, I think.
You got important things to say.
Okay. Yeah, let me first of all thank the proposers who put in competitive sealed proposals for these 2 projects. We had 7 for Elementary 11 and 7 for Wall Street Auditorium and Lakewood. And it does take a significant commitment to just put together the packet and submit it. So we certainly appreciate the time and the effort on all the proposers' parts. About a year ago, the board talked about different procurement methods for the projects that you were anticipating would come about because of the bond issue. In January of 2017, you approved competitive sealed proposals as the procurement method for Elementary 11. And then in May of 17, you proposed and approved the same procurement method for Wall Street Auditorium and Lakewood Elementary. That particular procurement method, competitive sealed proposals, request proposals based on the scope of work. It causes a selection committee to rank the proposals. The board is asked to approve that rank, and then the district or the representative of the district can negotiate the contract with the successful proposals who offered the best value according to the rank order. And then finally, the award for the contractor who offers the best value is executed. Now, if something happens and through the negotiations an agreement cannot be reached, then the process allows for the district to move to the next best value based on the rank order. So, how is the best value determined? Well, there was a selection committee of 7 individuals, and they reviewed the proposals. And you can see I brought 2 of them. I brought what the administration is recommending as the best value for the district for Elementary 11, as well as the best value for the Wall Street Auditorium and Lakewood Elementary. And you can see that they're pretty voluminous material. The committee members go through that material and they rank the proposals based on price, which counts for 45% of the final score, experience and reputation of the proposer with similar type construction projects. That counts for 25% of the score. Quality and reputation of the proposer with, again, respect to similar type work, that counts for 10% of the score. Capability of key personnel within the proposal counts for 10%. Financial capability of the proposer counts for 5%, and then their safety record counts for 5%. You add up all those, you get 100%. That's how the proposals are scored and ranked. So, for elementary 11, the process has caused Cloud Construction to be identified as the best value proposal for elementary 11, followed by Lee Lewis. If we could bring up that attachment, Rachel. Continue down. Okay, so this shows elementary 11, and it shows that there were 7. Turn this on so I can kind of point. 7 evaluators. Rachel, if you'll minimize that just a little bit. There you go. There's seven evaluators. Whoops. I killed the screen with this pointer. And you can see that Cloud Construction was identified as the best value for the district. And then you can also see that that is followed by Lee Lewis as being the second best value. With respect to Wall Street Auditorium and Lakewood Elementary, if you'll scroll down. Best value is identified as Masonic Construction, followed by Cloud Construction. Okay, we also have a bid tabulation that was part of the packet, and yeah, if you'll scroll down to that, it's going to be a little bit hard to read. If you'll, can you expand it just a little bit? Scroll down just a little bit. So we have the cost for each of the programs kind of detailed out here. The contract that would be written would encompass the base bid, recommended alternate bids, and then the owner's contingency. That would be included in the contract. You can see that the total cost extends beyond what would be included in the contract. It includes other things like moving cost and FF&E and things like that. But you can see that elementary's total cost comes in right around $19 million. Lakewood Elementary School right around 2.5, and then 2.3 for Wall Street Auditorium, for a total of $24,764,000.
Can you address why basically you've got $250,000, $100,000, $175,000 in owner contingency? What's the rationale of those amounts and plugging those in? And those are not bid amounts. Those are how that will be used.
That would be used for things that once the construction begins, for things that are not anticipated, and quite literally is a contingency factor that's built in within the budget so that you can address those things that have not been anticipated.
But may not be used. Is that right?
That's right. So it may not be used
on any of there's 3 different projects.
In a perfect world, you would not use any of those owner contingency amounts.
But it's available as if needed, but not planned.
Correct.
Jared, do you want to speak to the amounts of those and how that was determined?
Sure. As we talked with district staff, we'd identified the 3 different amounts. And basically, we range from 2.5% to 5% to 10% on the projects moving from left to right. And that's really focused on the complexity of the project and the renovation, and whether or not it's greenfield side or renovation. So elementary school 11 has a lower percentage contingency amount because there's less anticipated unforeseen conditions. Whereas you go over to Wall Street, it's a building that's 50 years old. You're never sure what you're going to get into at that point, so the percentage is higher on that one. So it is all owner money. Any unspent funds would be returned to Belton ISD.
We're not committing to spend that, we've just got it available budget. Can you talk about the alternatives that we're choosing versus the ones that we're not?
Okay, well, we have some advisory recommendations on the alternate bids. And those are represented, it's a little bit hard to see on this overhead, but those are represented in this column here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes means we're recommending that, no means we're not, or N means no, Y means yes. So for under elementary 11, we are recommending the fall protection alternate, the USB.
And that's playground, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Fall protection for the playground. It's kind of a rubberized material.
We talked about that before.
USB receptacles, which is alternate 6, alternate 7, which is type L copper at hot water, and alternate 8 is copper at cold water, and then we have the owner's contingency. So those are the advisory
were
recommendations.
deemed to not be necessary or were not good costs.
The others?
Cost benefits?
Yeah, certainly it's a judgment call as to which alternates are recommended. I think the discussion at the district level was that yeah, paying attention to cost and also paying attention to what were considered as perhaps the priorities for these different projects. That's how those recommended alternates were determined. For Lakewood Elementary, you see 2 alternates, increasing the gym size and installation of a bus canopy.
And then we talked about those previously.
Yes. And then for Wall Street Auditorium, we've recommended the alternate for the chiller, the storefront, which is alternate 2, the DDC front end, the exhaust fan.
What's a DDC front end? What does that mean?
Jared, speak to that.
DDC stands for Direct Digital Controls. In essence, you can then log in on a computer and control the HVAC equipment versus a programmable thermostat.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The exhaust fan, alternate 6, and then the owner's contingency.
Well,
all right, so correct me if I'm wrong, so we're under budget on the elementary school 11, but we are over budget on the Lakewood ES and the Wall Street, is that correct?
That's correct.
When we add all of those things in. I get why we're adding the alternates for the gym size and the bus canopy. That makes sense. It's easy to do while we're doing this. The best time to do that. My question is more along on the Wall Street side. The chiller replacement and storefront glass, is that something we can do in-house to save some of that money?
Define in-house.
We can subcontract on our own since we have a construction staff to be able to do that.
It is. Many of the alternates on there, there's a mix of whether or not, well, I'll call them integral, like the gym, you can't come back and add the gym. The chiller is an independent scope of work that you could.
At another school, that's how we would replace that.
Correct. You could come back at a later date. And part of the discussion with the chiller in particular was it's about 15 years old. So there's another 5 to 10 years of life anticipated left on the chiller. So it was kind of these, for giving the building a fresh look and replacing several of the systems, now might be an opportune time to do that. But you could come back and, whether it's in 6 months or in 5 years, do the same thing.
Well, the only reason I brought that up is when you go back to your breakdowns of the different costs for the different contractors, there's a pretty high variance in costs on some of those things.
They are.
And if so, that tells me that if we did it ourselves, we could possibly save up to $30,000, then that's $30,000 back in the school district's pocket.
You could potentially, yes. And that would be a cost and synergy in bidding it out at that point.
So why, okay, let's follow that up. Why do the chiller now? Just because, what's the advantage of doing it now? Is there some cost advantage, or is it just, hey, we're working on the building, let's go ahead and just make it new?
We're replacing several pieces of the equipment in the main mechanical room, and so this ties into that system. So that would bring the DDC system online with that as well.
Compatible and.
Yeah, correct. You'll get a little bit more control, but when you come back and if you chose to replace it in 5 years, you could do the same thing at that time.
We could replace it at the same exact time or right after the job's complete.
That's correct.
Is that a problem with your contractors, Jared?
I would recommend it at the job completion, so that way there's a even responsibility, or we're not having two guys work at the same time on the same project.
And it has nothing to do with what I think the contractor's gonna do a great job or not. That's not the issue.
It's the cost.
It's the cost. And so when you look at the different cost breakdowns, you've got one that's, $30,000 cheaper than the other, then that tells me that somewhere along the lines, we can get a better deal here.
And I guess the other, so it's a cost and a need. How important is it to do it now?
Is it something we have, like the chiller, is that something we have to do now?
We having issues with it?
It is not something that has to be done right now. We've know of no current issues at this time. It became a end of useful life question at that point.
I agree with that 15 years. It's probably the right time to make that happen. I'm just wondering, is it the most cost-effective way to do it?
Yeah, and that's something that we'll have to bid. The variation pricing may come down to a different understanding of scope, preferential pricing by a different contractor, or it may be, hey, I think they're going to go after this alternate, and I'm going to change the value. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions and unknowns there.
Sure.
We had a lot of discussions about Wall Street and controlling the air in that particular facility. Is that because of the chiller, Jared?
Yeah.
In terms of being able to, I've forgotten the specifics on that, but being too cold all the time, or the humidity. We had extensive conversations with you about that.
For a long time.
So right now, there is not a DDC system, so it would basically be by thermostat on the wall. And so often when we go in there, it is probably in the 65-degree range. And so as we go through the process, there will be controls put in place to help provide humidity control. And then as well as you get into DDC, you can schedule events at that point or schedule times to help better manage the energy side of things for the district.
Sure, and I think the DDC is a no-brainer when it comes to that portion of. My question is like the chiller, because that's something we're used to doing on every campus. If an air conditioner goes out, we got to replace an air conditioner. That's not something that's out of our realm of maintenance. And so why are we paying someone to do this when we do this every day anyway?
It could be something that y'all could do, and whether or not the school has the expertise, I'm not sure to replace a chiller, or if you'd hire a subcontractor directly to do that.
Okay. The storefront glass, I think we could probably have done in-house, but it would, after rethinking that a little bit, we've got sheetrock issues and other things that probably needs to tie in all at the same time.
Okay. So the question is the chiller?
The chiller, basically. And it's not a major, I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars, and then we're talking about $25,000 or $20,000 in savings. But $20,000 is a lot of iPads and a lot of books and, salaries and things, and that's a lot of money. So.
That's an assumed savings too.
Correct.
How do you?
Well, I think we could pull the alternate, and if we bid it out and it didn't, and it wasn't saving us money, we could always add it back into our contingency.
That's correct. You could approach it.
Mm-hmm.
If it didn't save us money, we could always add it back in.
Yeah.
We've already got a cost of what it's going to be.
Y'all comfortable with that? Mm-hmm. That sounds like a reasonable plan.
Just the one alternate?
Okay, so we pull the chiller alternate off. Let me back up a step and say, in response to Dr. Muller's report, I appreciate the diligence that you all took to evaluate and look at all this and not just say, oh, low bid or this is the bidder, but to interview, to review applications, to scrutinize that from different perspectives and then consolidate that into a final recommendation. Obviously, a lot of time, a lot of vetting and investigation in the process to bring us a good recommendation with two strong companies to do our projects. It is good, and I want to also add one other point. As Leo was mentioning, the budgeting, the total budget, we're still within budget, allowing enough for the high school, the big project that's coming. And I've asked this repeatedly as we've had high school updates, but I want to ask it again. Where are we at with cost estimates on the high school? Because we're doing these first, but we've got to have enough money for that high school.
In a perfect world, we'd be doing this, we'd be doing the big project first, and then what's left, we take on the smaller projects.
That would be wonderful as we go through. So right now, you have the three projects here, and the section above this view right here is what was presented as the bond planning budget as we move forward. We're within 125,000 of the budget at this point, so pretty close. So we have not touched the high school dollars at all as part of these projects. In terms of cost estimating for the high school, we're issuing a set on Wednesday. That will go to the contractor to be able to verify the price or go through the pricing effort. We're anticipating to see that back in mid-January from that perspective. At the last go-round, we were on the dollar on that.
That's the advantage of having a construction manager at risk and working as we go. And so that's why, as you are building the plans, we've been able to get the feedback, and that's
we've been able to make the needed adjustments.
Cost estimating than now put it out to bid and see what comes back. Based on what you just said, though, that makes even more sense to pull the $102,000 off. Is that right? Yeah, $102,000 off, because that puts us right back where we need to be. All right?
It puts us darn close to equal.
Okay.
I've got a question. A lot of people ask about the rubber band effect of the hurricanes and such, and I know that lumber and sheetrock are traded on commodities, so prices have been locked in for a while. Are we gonna? When does it start catching up to us, and is that going to affect what we're looking at? I know you guys are looking at this.
So for example, if we sign a contract today for, I'm just going to use the base bid amount, $16,444,000 for the elementary school, that is a contract with the contractor to provide everything that's in the drawings for those dollars. So there's no opportunity at that point to say, well, my drywall went up, I need more money. The price is what it is on that one. You're correct.
And I will say, too, I've worked with some of these companies, with my company. I've done some work for some of these. And I appreciate, as a person who bids a lot of jobs, I appreciate it when people look at us subs and contractors in the holistic view, not just who's the cheapest. I like that. It protects you in other ways, too. But I like that concept of us looking at all the different criteria. I think it protects us to get the best overall job, not necessarily the cheapest.
Best value, yep.
Yes, best value. I think that's, Dr. Mulley used that same term. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would suggest that Belton's timing on these construction projects is excellent, because if you just look back to November, the number of bond issues that were passed in the recent election is staggering. And so that's really going to drive lots of construction.
We knew going into this that new construction is more cost-effective than renovations and additions, and so we knew there was more variability in the smaller projects. I mean, we've said that from the get-go.
And the Lakewood project, the Wall Street project was a last-minute ad that kind of got thrown in the mix very late, and so there wasn't a lot of time for Jared and his team to put numbers together, and there's a lot of variables, especially in Wall Street. There's, you got a 60-year-old building over there. There's a lot to that.
Yeah, and the more you got into it, the more you.
Oh yeah, and they're going to find a little more once the walls open up. It's just kind of part of the deal.
More that needed to be taken care of.
So we do have good bids. We have, and we feel good about them. They're competitive, and we saw multiple bidders, and that's a good thing. That's a good environment for us. People want to work with us, and that's a good thing. So I think what we have is a recommendation to take the recommendation with the exception of, is it alternate WSA 1?
Yes.
Chiller. To delete that item and adjust the totals therefore. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what we need is to approve the administration's selection of the ranking of construction contractors for RCSP 1711905-168 Elementary School 11, and RSCP 1710905-167 Wall Street Auditorium Update and Lakewood Elementary Music Classrooms and Gymnasium Addition projects. Authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute contracts for these projects on behalf of the district, beginning with the #1 ranked contractor per CVB Legal. I need a motion to approve, to do that based on what we just said of removing WSA 1 chiller from what's presented. Have a motion for Mr. Camden. Does anybody want a second for Mr. Taggart? Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Should add, and this is irrelevant, construction is ready, they're ready to go. Is that right? They're in the audience. They're ready to go to work tomorrow? Is that right?
Starting tomorrow.
Ready to go to work. Construction begins as soon as contracts are executed and required documentation is secured to the satisfaction of the district. The completion of project of the elementary school 11 is expected on or before April 26, 2019, and completion of the Wall Street Auditorium update and Lakewood Auditorium update is May 21st, 2018. Lakewood Elementary music classrooms and gym are expected on or before August 13th, 2018. Those are good timelines. Is that right?
Yes.
I can do that. All right. All in favor of a motion to put them to work? That passes unanimously. Go to work. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Dr. Kincaid. Thank you, everybody who was a part of that process. And Leo, thank you for your expertise and input in looking at that chiller issue. Great, exciting time for us to move forward, building a new elementary school and doing these needed renovations. Our community will benefit greatly from that work. Thank you. Look forward to hearing what you bring back to us in January. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We didn't have any questions for you, but go to work. Thank you. Perry? I didn't realize Perry was in the audience. Okay, well, since we're going to build an elementary school, why don't we name it? That's our next item on the agenda. We've talked about this a little bit the last couple of months, and Dr. Kincaid has given us a summary of some of the names that threw out.
Yeah, I hope I captured them
Would
all.
and you may have gotten feedback. I've been getting feedback for the last month or so, also. And so let's just use the format we used when we did the high school and just kind of go around the table with ideas. And I'll just get it started. I've started with Carriage House is where it's located and it's easily identifiable. Oak Ridge has jumped out and I've gotten the most positive feedback for it. So I'll throw that out. Who wants to go next?
I just simply like Oak Hills.
Oak Hills.
It just sounds solid. Oak Hills Elementary.
That's the neighboring subdivision.
I like it.
Okay, thank you. Oak Hills. So I got one for Oak Hills. It's exactly what we wanted. Oak Hills. Like Oak Hills. Oak Hills. Who's next?
I want to give one last plea for Charter Oak, just because it is a historic event in our community. In fact, it is the founding of our community. I Googled it. The actual Charter Oak tree is a 3-minute drive from that elementary school. So on one road, you don't even have to go around town to get to it. And it is the founding of Bell County at the Charter Oak. And I just seems like a fitting thing to honor. If you Google it up, it's easy to find, and at the same time, there's not just a ton of information on it, and by naming an elementary after it, you would keep that history alive.
Okay. Who's next? Mike? Come on, everybody's got a hand
Charter
up
Oak
here.
sounds great to me. That sounds wonderful.
Leo, okay, we got two Charter Oaks.
I go for Charter Oak.
Jeff likes Charter Oak. Mike?
Well, my first choice was Oak Ridge, but I like Charter Oak. But Oak Ridge would be my first choice. I like the ridge because of where it's located. The River Ridge area.
That was mine. Oak Ridge is what I kind of lit on, but.
Okay, so we have 3 Oak Ridge and 3 Charter Oaks and 1 Oak Hills by my count. Does that sound right? So we're gonna do what we did last time, I guess. Anybody want to negotiate? I'm gonna just say, the feedback I got, Oak Ridge, it combined the oak, we talked about poison oak, and Ridgeway, the two major roads. It made sense to, I don't know, people like that. Charter Oak's confusing because there's a Charter Oak Road that's not there. That's my opinion, but I don't feel that strong about it, so. Who's gonna budge on? We gotta get 4.
I'm a history guy, and, you know, at the very first meeting, I think I said, you know, something about historical, and we said, no, we don't do that a lot of times, but I could go, you know, it makes sense, the Charter Oak. It means something. I could go with that.
I mean, you could say we've got, you know, 2 schools that are named after lake, and we have a lake road, and it's not on that at all. It's across town, you know. We've got Chisholm Trail Elementary, not anywhere near, you know, Chisholm Trail. So,
I like that.
I'm just saying, and our issue, I know that the issue we have with Tarver, the problem there is that we had a school named Tarver, and then we moved the name of we had a street on that school sat on, and then we moved the name, not the school, to another school. You know, we completely, I mean, that's what got confusing there. Because it actually had been in a different location, a totally different school, and then we put it somewhere else. So to me, that's what's confusing about Tarver. It's not that it's not on the road. It's that it was there. It was on that road.
You wanna make a motion, Janet? You got 4.
You got 4.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, that's what I said. You got 4. You didn't have to say all that. You already had your 4.
Jeff was trying. Jeff wanted to give a second.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we name the new elementary Charter Oak Elementary.
I have a motion from Ms. Lee and a second from Mr. Norwood. Any other comments? All in favor of that motion, raise a hand. Okay, I'll go with you. If you're all going that way, I'll go. We have a name of a school, Charter Oak Elementary. Go build it. Yes. Build us Charter Oak Elementary School, please. Jared, if you'll change all those documents real quick to put that name on there, that'll be awesome.
The oak tree's still there.
Okay.
It's a historical monument.
Good job, Janet. You convinced us.
Well, maybe not us, but most.
You convinced us. You got a unanimous vote out of that. All right. Mr. Schiller.
Sir, so a couple months ago, we changed the approval process for professional level employees, so we're not asking for any action tonight. But we did hire this month, we hired a teacher for North Belton Middle School math position, an LSSP intern, and we've received and accepted 4 resignations.
Okay, that's report only. I'm going to call timeout here. Have a request. We are going. Okay. Never mind. Any questions? Open positions?
We have 4 open positions right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then the next, we do not need to take action on that, as a reminder, as Todd mentioned. Okay, Todd, we have the agenda item to take action on a proposed termination of a professional employee's term contract. This is a topic that we had several people speak on earlier, and of course, as I mentioned at that time, some of you may not have been here, as I mentioned at that time, we cannot talk about confidential personnel employment information legally for 2 reasons. One, legally, there are legal restrictions, but also ethically and morally, we have a responsibility to respect the privacy of people's lives. And so we are going to abide by that law and have conversation in private, closed session, and not in open session, because it's the right thing to do. But I do want everyone to know who spoke, since we're on this issue. We have spent considerable time considering this in private, and we will continue to respect the privacy of individuals involved, as is the right thing to do. And it was mentioned several times that people are speaking about rumors. We're not going to talk about rumors. because that's not respectful of people's privacy. So, Mr. Schiller, you want to bring us a recommendation?
Board policy states that a term contract may be terminated any time for good cause. We are recommending tonight acceptance of the recommendation to propose to terminate the 17-18 term contract of Al Maxwell and authorizing the board president to send written notice to the professional employee that proposes to terminate the 17-18 term contract.
Is there any comment? Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Have a motion, Mr. Cowan, to accept the recommendation of the administration as presented. Is there a second? I have a second from Ms. Lee. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion, raise a hand. All opposed? That passes unanimously. We will follow up with that process and notify Mr. Maxwell of the intention to move forward with termination. Again, I would ask that people respect the employee's privacy and show the respect that he, as any of us would want. I doubt that any of us would want rumors to be discussed in public about us. Thank you, Mr. Schiller. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to review the progress of board members' required training. You have, on the screen, and you have in front of you the summary of continuing education credit record. In accordance with state law, the progress of each board member's fulfillment of required training must be announced and reflected in the official minutes of the last regular meeting of the calendar year. Completing required continuing education annually is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member under state Board of Education rules. I am pleased to announce that all board members have met Tier 1, which is local orientation and education code orientation or update, and Tier 2, which is the team building and assessment, have met the requirements for Tier 1, have met the requirements for Tier 2, and all board members have exceeded the requirements for Tier 3. And also, Sue Jordan has received the most training hours again this year, so congratulations. But it is significant. We take our responsibility seriously to be lifelong learners, and just as we ask our students and our staff to continue to learn, we are in learning mode. I also want to commend our new board members. You completed extra training. You have an extra requirement to complete more training in your first year. You have done that, and you're to be commended for that. So that report will be posted online and made available to media, and we get to say that.
Can I just say this law, the timing of this announcement is changing by Senate Bill 1566, I believe it is, and so we'll be bringing this report to you again prior to the board elections. I believe that's the last month before the board's election, which is held in May. Yeah, so
we'll
April, you'll see it again.
We used to have to do it twice a year, and then they took away the twice a year, and now they put it back. Because they want us to keep announcing that.
I think it'll be once a year, but it will just be prior to the election.
Moving it to that time, which actually makes more sense, but whatever. Okay, issues or concerns for future agenda or administrative reports. Hi, anything? Leo? Sue? Mike? Janet? Jeff? No issues. Our future events, obviously we're coming up on a break. We have a few more fall updates. I'll encourage you, if you have a chance to make those, a great opportunity to interact with our staff and some special end-of-year activities this week, fine arts and banquets and things like that going on. And then break. Our next meeting, I believe, is scheduled for January 22nd.
Oh, I can find out.
Can we confirm that?
You bet.
I have that's not the third Monday. The third Monday is the 15th, but it's holiday, so I think we moved it to the 22nd.
That is correct.
Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for January 22nd. Wish everyone a Merry Christmas with your family and friends. Thank you all for staying with us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.